I was 2 hours into the boat ride when I realized I'd made a mistake. The island wasn't on any commercial map. That should have been my first warning. It showed up only on the coordinate chart given to me by the man who hired me, some middle-aged creep with gray-rimmed glasses, breath like sulfur, and a way of speaking that made everything sound like a riddle. I'd answered an obscure classified ad, seeking overnight security technician. Remote monitoring post. Food and housing included. Hazard pay negotiable. Hazard pay. That line hooked me. 2 months of watching screens in some glorified lighthouse in the middle of nowhere. Easy. I thought I'd spend my nights half asleep, occasionally waving off seagulls or bored teenagers. But now, sitting in the back of a rust-caked fishing vessel that stank of brine and diesel, I wasn't so sure. The boatman hadn't said a word since we left the coast. The sky was gray, low-hanging clouds skimming the tips of unseen mountains behind us. The sea seemed wrong, too calm, but also too dark, as if the water had no bottom. The further we drifted, the more the air grew heavy, dense. Like trying to breathe through damp wool. And then I saw it. The island. It jutted from the ocean like a broken tooth, surrounded by jagged black rocks and foaming white water. No beach. No harbor. Just a craggy cliff face and a single, narrow dock leading up to a squat concrete building with a radio tower protruding from its roof like a bent needle. Here, the boatman finally said, his voice like gravel rolled over glass. "You get off now." I looked around. "You not staying?" He shook his head. "No one stays." I wanted to ask what he meant, but he'd already turned away, pulling his coat tight, eyes locked on the horizon like he couldn't wait to escape. I hauled my duffel bag over my shoulder and stepped onto the dock. It creaked beneath me. The island smelled of salt, rust, and something else, something faintly organic, like wet moss left too long in the dark. The boatman didn't wait. The engine coughed, spat a cloud of smoke, and he was gone, just a fading black smear against the endless gray sea. That was yesterday. I write this now sitting in the main control room, surrounded by 6 blank monitors and a humming wall of outdated equipment. The room is buried into the center of the facility, halfway below ground, the walls concrete, lined with old cables and peeling paint. There's a hum in the walls that never stops, like a deep, submerged growl just on the edge of hearing. The cameras are black and white, low resolution, but they cover everything: the cliffside path, the generator shed, the exterior fence, rusted, broken in places, the empty rooms upstairs where bunk beds lie untouched, dust-caked. The hallway outside the surveillance room. Even the supply cellar, though the camera down there flickers every few seconds. The manual said there were 21 cameras total. 2 are permanently out of service. 1 loses signal at midnight every night for exactly 13 minutes. I don't know why. There's no internet. No cell service. The only communication is a shortwave radio that connects directly to the mainland outpost that handles provisioning. But it only comes on every Sunday at noon. Today is Monday. There's no one left to call. Last night, I heard footsteps. I was watching the monitors around 2:45 a.m., eating cold ravioli straight from the can, when I heard them, slow, deliberate. Not pacing. Not wandering. They were coming down the main hallway. Right toward the control room. I froze. Looked up. On the monitor labeled Hull 3, I saw it. A shadow. Human-shaped. But wrong. It was tall, too tall. And thin, the limbs too long, like its elbows bent too low. It moved like a marionette pulled on strings by a drunk puppeteer. Lurching, then too smooth. It stopped outside the control room door. I stared at the monitor, holding my breath. The live feed had a 2-second delay, but the sound was real-time. The footsteps stopped. I looked at the door. Nothing. No knock. No sound. Just stillness. Then a new sound, scratching. Not at the door, inside the wall. Directly behind me. I spun. My chair scraped loud across the floor. Silence returned. I ran my hand along the wall. Cold. Damp. No cracks. No opening. Just the low growl of power cables vibrating deep in the concrete. When I turned back to the monitor, the hallway was empty. I didn't sleep. I left the camera feeds running and curled up in the corner with my flashlight in hand, heart hammering in my chest like it wanted out. This morning, I checked the hallway. Nothing. No footprints, no drag marks. The floor's covered in a thin film of dust, hasn't been cleaned in years. My own prints are there, clear as day. But whoever, or whatever, was outside that door last night didn't leave any trace. I checked the other rooms. All empty. All cold. All silent. But I found something strange in the stairwell leading to the roof, a scrap of fabric caught on a protruding bolt. Dark red. Looked like part of a jacket. I'm the only one here. Right? There's a logbook in the main office, a big dusty ledger with faded pages. It goes back years. The names are mostly unreadable, but I found a few notes in the margins, scribbled in what I think is pencil, some of them so faint I could barely read them. Here's one that stuck with me, February 16th, heard singing in the generator shed. Checked. Empty. Still hearing it at night. Another, 3/5, he was standing in the stairwell. I know he drowned. I saw him drown. Why is he standing there? And the last legible entry, for 11, don't look at the camera in the pantry. Don't look at it. That's it. The rest of the book is blank. I looked at the pantry camera around noon today. Nothing. Just shelves. Dust. A single can of peaches sitting in the middle of the floor like someone left it there on purpose. But the longer I stared, the more I noticed something wrong with the shadows. They were moving, just barely. Crawling up the wall like vines in time-lapse. I blinked, and they were still. It's getting dark now. I don't know how long I'll last here. I keep thinking about the boatman, the way he said it, no one stays. He knew something. And now, so do I. Because the hallway camera, Hall 3, it just turned itself back on. And this time, I'm not alone on the feed. Something is standing outside the door again. Watching me. Waiting. And I think it knows I can see it. The first thing I did was kill the lights. Not that it helped. The glow from the monitors cast the control room in a sickly pallor, grayscale shadows twitching across the walls, the ceiling pulsing like it was breathing. I could still see the hallway on the center screen, the static-smeared feet flickering like a dying flame. And the figure standing there. Closer now. I couldn't make out its face, if it had one. Its head looked blurred, as though the camera couldn't focus on it. The rest of its body was elongated, thin and jittering in micro-movements, like each limb existed in two overlapping dimensions trying to reconcile with each other. I stood. My chair squealed behind me. On the monitor, the figure didn't react. My flashlight was already in my hand, shaking with a tremor I couldn't control. I clicked it on and aimed it at the door. No sound. No shadow on the other side. I looked back at the screen. Gone. Vanished from the feed, as if it had never been there. The hallway was empty. Dust, pipes, concrete. Static rolling gently in the corners. I reached for the security system terminal, a rust-colored box bolted to the wall with a cracked screen and a keypad that looked like it belonged on a Cold War submarine. I hit the lockdown key. It blinked. System failure, lockdown unavailable of course. I left the control room. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe I should have stayed put, barricaded the door with the heavy filing cabinet and rationed beans until Sunday's radio call. But if that thing, whatever it was, wanted in, a metal desk wasn't going to stop it. So I crept out into the hallway. The air out there was colder, the kind of cold that came from inside concrete, deep and old and full of silence. I could hear the wind outside, rattling the vents like fingers brushing steel. The hallway looked exactly like the monitor had shown. Long, narrow, with pipes running along the ceiling like exposed nerves. Every few feet, a flickering ceiling light hummed, casting slices of trembling illumination. I walked slowly, checking each cross corridor, each door. Most were locked. A few led to supply closets, filled with rotting mop heads and broken equipment. The stairwell to the upper dormitory levels stood at the far end. I felt drawn to it. As I climbed the stairs, the air grew heavier, humid with rot. It smelled like a flooded basement, the sharp sting of mildew, old sweat, and something almost sweet. The dormitories were long abandoned. 8 rooms, each with 2 beds, faded name tags, moldy mattresses. Some beds still had pillows, and one had what looked like a human tooth sitting on the frame. I didn't touch it. At the far end was the communal bathroom, tile cracked and yellowed. I checked the mirrors above the sinks out of habit. That's when my breath caught in my throat. I saw myself, but I wasn't moving. I mean, I was moving. I could feel myself breathing, my hand tightening on the flashlight, the pulse in my neck ticking like a bomb. But in the mirror, I stood completely still. My reflection stared at me, expressionless, pale, hollow-eyed. And then it smiled. I stumbled backward, slamming into the doorway. My flashlight hit the floor and spun, the beam jerking across the cracked tile. I looked up again. The mirror was empty. No reflection. Just the empty bathroom behind me, stretching off into shadow. Back in the hallway, the light at the stairwell had gone out. And I wasn't alone anymore. Footsteps echoed from below, slow, wet, as if something barefoot was walking through shallow water. They came one by one. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. I moved back, inching down the hallway, trying not to breathe. Then I heard something even worse. A second pair of footsteps. Behind me. Lighter. Faster. Almost childlike. I turned. Nothing. Then a whisper brushed my ear, "You shouldn't be here." I didn't look. I ran. Down the hallway, down the stairs 2 at a time, back toward the control room. My foot hit something, metal, and I went sprawling. My flashlight rolled into the dark. I scrambled, palms scraping against the rough floor, and found the light. I turned it on. A face stared back at me. Half-formed. Pressed against the glass window of a door I didn't recognize. Its skin was stretched, translucent. The mouth was open too wide. The eyes were black, no, not black, just holes. And then it was gone. Just like that. The door was just a wall panel. No window. No face. I ran harder than I ever had before. I slammed the control room door behind me and pushed the filing cabinet in front of it. The monitors were still glowing, but the feeds were different now. Hall 3 was gone. Static. Camera 14, stairwell, showed nothing. Camera 4, the pantry, was dark. But camera 7, the exterior cliff, was showing something new. Movement. Figures. 3 of them. Standing at the cliff's edge, looking out over the ocean. Their backs to the camera. Motionless. Silent. They weren't there earlier. I knew that for sure. I checked. I'd stared at that cliff cam for half an hour during lunch and it was empty. Now. 3 figures. Identical heights. Identical stillness. Identical dread. One of them turned slightly. And for just a second, I swear, I saw my own face. It's morning now. I haven't slept. The sun barely rises here. It just stains the clouds a sickly peach color before fading back into gray. I tried the shortwave radio again. Nothing. Static and dead air. I wrote in the logbook. Not that it'll matter. Not that anyone will read it. But I wrote, they watch us from inside the feeds. They wear our shapes. They know we're alone. And they don't want us to leave. There's something wrong with the pantry camera again. The shadows are back. Climbing the wall. And now there's a fourth figure standing on the cliff. Closer to the camera. Closer to me. I don't know how much longer I'll last here. But I think the islands always had watchers. And I think I just replaced one of them. I didn't move for hours. The control room felt tighter than usual, like the walls had pushed inward while I wasn't watching. The monitors flickered softly in the dim glow, whispering static in place of voices. I stared at the cliffside feed, watching the four figures on the edge of the island remain perfectly still. They hadn't moved since I first saw them, an unnatural stillness that made the air in my lungs feel stale. But the fourth figure, that one was new. It was closer. Too close. I leaned toward the screen, my breath fogging the glass. It wasn't until I pressed my palm against the monitor, trying to focus on its blurred outline, that I realized I was shaking. The fourth figure had my silhouette. Same build. Same slump of the shoulders. Even the same torn sleeve from when I scraped against the stairwell door last night. But the most unnerving part. It was looking directly at the camera. The other three stared out to sea, rigid, like statues lost in prayer. But the fourth, my copy, stood slightly turned, head angled just enough to meet the unblinking lens. I could feel it. It was watching me through the camera. As if the feed wasn't just one way. At 9:14 a.m., I saw it move. Just its hand, a slow, downward sweep, until the fingers were at its side again. I rewound the feed 3 times to be sure. The movement wasn't a glitch. It was deliberate. I forced myself away from the monitor and opened the food locker. I wasn't hungry, but I needed something tactile, something that reminded me I had a body, that I was still in it. I chose a vacuum-sealed protein bar, tore it open with my teeth. It tasted like dried cardboard soaked in powdered metal. I barely chewed. I just needed to do something. Anything to distract from the screen. I tried to write in the logbook again, but the pen stuttered. My fingers couldn't keep the grip. My handwriting looked like a child's, or a stroke victim's. I gave up halfway through the sentence. There are things here that were our faces. The island isn't empty. It's full. I stared at the unfinished line for a while, chewing slowly. Full of what? I didn't want to answer that. I decided to leave the control room. The air inside had grown too stale. Too heavy. I needed to see the sky, even if it was only that low gray smear above the sea. Even if those figures were still out there. I took the emergency flashlight, pocketed the folding utility knife from the desk drawer, the closest thing to a weapon I had, and stepped into the corridor. The lights were out again. All of them. The power had not failed. I checked the monitor indicators before I left. Green lights across the board. Generator fine. Internal battery backup charged. But the corridor lights? Dead. The hallway swallowed my footsteps like a mouth. Each step I took echoed further than it should have. The silence outpaced me. I was scared to speak. Scared my voice might summon something listening in the walls. I passed the stairwell door. This time, I saw the bolt was gone, ripped out of the frame, twisted like soft wire. I didn't dare open it. Whatever was upstairs, I wasn't ready to meet it again. Not after the mirror incident. Not after it smiled at me. I turned the corner toward the exit hatch. It took me a few seconds to realize the door was already open. Just a crack. A whisper of wind moving through it, cold and salt-stung. I didn't remember leaving it like that. The island outside was dead silent. Not just quiet, silent. No wind, no gulls, no ocean surf against the rocks. The only sound was the crunch of gravel under my boots and the rasp of my own breath, too loud in my ears. The sky was slate gray, the clouds close enough to touch. It felt like standing at the bottom of a vast bowl. The cliff was a short walk away, maybe 30 yards down a narrow path carved into the black rock. I could see the spot where the 4 figures had stood. And they were still there. Except now, there were only 3. I froze. My spine locked up like someone had clamped ice around it. I counted again. 3. 1 tall. 1 slightly shorter. 1 with impossibly thin limbs and a broken neck tilt. But the 4th? Gone. I scanned the path. Looked behind me. Nothing. I turned slowly, knees stiff, heart pounding, and back toward the facility door. Then I heard it. Not a sound. Not exactly. It was more like the absence of sound, condensed into a single point just behind me. A dead spot in the air, as if even the silence had pulled away from whatever was standing there. I turned. Nothing. But the shadows were wrong. They pooled in shapes that didn't match the terrain. Something was watching me. I bolted. Inside again, I slammed the hatch shut and twisted the manual lock. It groaned, metal on metal. Not secure. Not really. But enough to feel like I was safe. Back in the control room, I did a sweep of the feeds. The cliff cam was down. Static. Just static. The monitor buzzed softly, and every few seconds, I thought I saw a shape flicker in the noise. Something bending forward. Something listening. The pantry camera was black now. Just black. Not off, there was still a timestamp running in the lower corner. But the image was pitch dark, as if something had covered the lens. I flipped to the generator shed camera. And screamed. My face. Looking right at me. Leaning into the camera, eyes wide and empty, mouth twisted into a wet smile, like someone stretching a dead body's jaw into place. I dropped the flashlight. The feed flickered. Gone. Nothing there now but the shed. Silent. Empty. The door open. Swinging gently. I haven't eaten since the protein bar. It's hard to keep anything down. My stomach's been twisting, churning like it's preparing to eject something foreign, something that isn't mine. I've started hearing things through the intercom. Voices, garbled and distant. Not from the radio, no, from the intercom used to announce security alerts. I thought it was broken. It hadn't worked since I got here. But an hour ago, it clicked on. Just static at first. Then, don't look at your hands. That was all. It repeated. 5 times. Then silence. It's night again. I think. The sky hasn't changed. But the cold is back, and the facility hums in a deeper tone now, like it's breathing from its foundations. The pantry cams come back online. The lens is clear. And someone's inside. Standing perfectly still in the middle of the floor. Holding a can of peaches. Looking directly at the camera. I squinted. The resolution's terrible. Grainy. But I think they're wearing my clothes. I don't think I came here alone. I think I was already here. And I think the island has been waiting for me to catch up with myself. The facility breathes now. I can hear it, low and deep, like air moving through stone lungs. It shudders in the walls, settles in the vents. Not just the hum of old equipment. This is organic. I can't explain it, but I feel it in my teeth. It rattles my molars. Every few hours, there's this drawn-out exhale that makes the air in the room colder, thinner. And after it breathes out, something shifts underneath the floor. There's something alive beneath the concrete. Something that wants me to notice it. I stopped looking at my reflection. The mirror in the bathroom now reflects things that aren't there. I caught myself glancing into it this morning while washing my face, and for a brief moment, I saw the bathroom door behind me. Open. Only it wasn't. Not physically. But in the mirror, it was wide open, and something long-limbed and waterlogged stood just outside it, swaying slightly, its arms too long, fingers dragging the floor, head bent at an unnatural angle, like a puppet without strings. When I turned around in real life, the door was closed. But the sound of the dripping, of wet flesh hitting tile, persisted in my ears. So I smashed the mirror. Didn't even think about it. Just grabbed the edge of the soap dish and slammed it into the glass. It shattered instantly, cutting my knuckles. I bled on the sink, blood mixing with the rust in the drain like old secrets finally surfacing. I haven't cleaned it up. I don't think I will. Let it bleed. Let this whole place rot. I've started hearing whispers through the facility. They're quiet, but deliberate. They don't sound like radio interference or imagination, they sound like someone standing in the next room, calling through the wall. At first it was unintelligible. Just a hiss of syllables. A wet consonant here, a guttural scrape there. Then, this morning, I made out an actual sentence. He never left. It repeated it twice, with a pause in between, like the speaker was confirming I'd heard them. He never left. That's when I knew. There's someone else on this island. Or something that used to be someone. I went to the generator shed around midday. It's one of the few places I haven't thoroughly inspected, and after the incident on the camera, where I saw my own face smiling back at me, I had to see it in person. I needed proof it was just a glitch. A trick of the eyes. The wind picked up as I walked across the gravel. The kind of wind that smells like buried things. Wet soil, metal, and meat. The sky above was iron gray, clouds hanging low like bruises stretched across the atmosphere. It felt like walking underwater. The generator shed stood alone on the northern ridge, surrounded by nothing but scrub brush and skeletal trees. Its door was wide open when I arrived. I didn't leave it like that. Inside, the air was wrong. Hot and moist, like someone had been breathing in there for hours. The overhead light flickered once and died. I turned on my flashlight and swept it around the room. Nothing. Just the diesel generator, humming low and steady. Wires. Fuel tanks. Storage lockers. And a man's boot. Half buried in the dirt floor near the back wall. Old. Faded. Stained with something black that glistened slightly under the flashlight beam. I crouched, brushed it aside, and saw the bone. A shin, broken halfway through, jutting from the boot like a snapped icicle. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. Then I heard it. A whisper, not from the wall, but from beneath the floor. Please. Don't leave me down here. I froze. It wasn't a recording. The voice was wet. It gurgled as if trying to speak through a mouthful of seawater. You see me now, it said. And then, that's good. I ran. Back to the facility. Slammed the door. Locked it. And for the first time since I got here, I cried. Not just tears, but that deep, animal sobbing that tears something inside you. The kind of crying that leaves you hollow. Like you've expelled a piece of your soul just to survive the next 5 minutes. Something lives beneath the island. something buried. And I think it's awake now. That night, the dreams came back. This time, I was in the hallway outside the dormitories, only the hallway was longer. Much longer. It stretched on endlessly, doors on either side, each one identical. As I walked past, the doors began to open. One by one. Inside each was a room filled with water. Dark, churning water. And in the center of every flooded room, a figure floated just beneath the surface, motionless. Eyes open. Staring upward. And each face was mine. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. Except it wasn't sweat. It was salt water. I reeked of brine and decay. My sheets were soaked. My pillow stuck to the side of my face, and when I tore it away, a chunk of seaweed came with it, slimy, green-black, and tangled around my hair. My window was locked. My door sealed. And yet, I had drowned in my sleep. I returned to the generator shed at dawn. I needed answers. I brought the crowbar from the supply closet with me, along with my flashlight and the battered logbook. I pried up the dirt floor paneling in the far corner, where I'd heard the voice before. Underneath, I found stone. Old stone. Masonry that didn't match the rest of the facility. Wet, ancient bricks stained with salt and etched with markings I didn't recognize, symbols like twisted runes, all spiraling toward the center. And at that center, a hatch. Iron. Round. Like a submarine airlock. No handle. Just a single word scratched into the rusted metal. Caleb. That night, the whispers started inside the control room. Not over the intercom. Not through the walls. Inside. Right next to my ear. He opened the hatch. I turned. Empty. He let it in. My own voice. My own voice saying it. And then, from the monitors, and it never left. I did some digging. Back in the archives, those moldy, disorganized file cabinets shoved in the back of the main hallway, I found a faded personnel roster from 30 years ago. There were 17 names. Only one was underlined in red ink, over and over again, to the point of tearing the paper. Caleb Murrow, maintenance technician. Arrived 1995. The notes stop a month later. Scrawled in pencil at the bottom of the file, last seen descending into the lower shaft. Locked it behind him. Didn't come back. And below that, circled 3 times, do not open. But it's too late, isn't it? It's already open. Or maybe it never closed. Maybe Caleb never left. Maybe he's still here, somewhere below, whispering through the cracks, dragging seawater into my lungs, warping my reflection. Maybe Caleb was the first. And now it's my turn. I didn't fall asleep last night. I woke up again, anyway. Standing in the hallway outside the pantry. No memory of leaving the bed. No memory of walking there. Just me, barefoot, holding the crowbar, staring at the security camera. And it was on. The red light blinking. Recording. Back in the control room, the footage is corrupted, but not entirely. I played the time-stamped file from 3:14 a.m. It shows me standing there, just like I remember. Then, something steps out of the pantry. Something dripping. It doesn't move like a person. It jerks, like a marionette pulled by tangled strings. Its body is emaciated, bones visible under bloated skin, and its eyes glow faintly green in the night vision. It walks up to me. And wraps its arms around me. Not to attack. To embrace. Then both of us vanish from the frame, like we were never there. The island doesn't want to hurt me. It wants me to stay. It wants to keep me. It rained all day. Not just rain, deluge. The kind of endless, sideways rain that blurs the world into watercolors. The windows of the control room vibrated under the assault, and the constant hiss of it crept into my skull like a parasite. There's no proper drainage system here. The gutters are clogged with dead birds and black moss. The generator hiccuped twice before stabilizing, but I could hear something, some low, grinding churn, in its rhythm, like it's protesting something it knows is coming. I stayed inside, mostly. Spent hours reviewing footage from the pantry hall, the stairwell, and the eastern corridor. Nothing. Then again, I've started to wonder if the cameras only show what the island allows. As if they're part of it. As if I'm watching the island watching me. I kept coming back to the footage from 3:14 a.m. The one where I was embraced by the thing that looked like a waterlogged corpse. I've watched it 47 times now. I counted. On the 24th viewing, I noticed something new. Right before it wraps its arms around me, its mouth opens slightly. Just for a second. And in that second, I can see teeth. Human teeth. Dozens of them. All clenched. All screaming. I found the key. Taped under the desk, in the far left drawer of the control room workstation. An old brass key marked L1. It was wrapped in wax paper and smelled faintly of oil and mildew. Next to it, taped down with yellowing duct tape, was a note. Scrawled in block letters, nearly illegible, "If you hear him in the walls, do not follow." And beneath that, Caleb never made it out. But something else did. I waited until after dark. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping the dark would make it harder for the island to see me. Or maybe some part of me believed that what lives down there doesn't like the light. But really, I think I waited because I was afraid. Afraid of the hatch in the generator shed. Afraid of the name etched into it. Afraid that if I opened it, something inside me would recognize what I found. The rain slowed around midnight. I geared up, flashlight, crowbar, the key, a flare gun from the emergency kit, only 2 flares left, and the maintenance satchel I found in the storage room, likely Caleb's old one. Still smelled like sweat and oil. I wrapped a rag around the crowbar's handle. It helped with the grip. I opened the facility door. The air hit me like a wet lung. Warm, rank. The smell of rot had intensified. Like the rain had stirred up things that should have stayed buried. The walk to the shed felt longer this time. The gravel seemed softer, like something underneath was breathing just beneath the surface. The generator shed welcomed me like a tomb. I stepped inside. The light bulb overhead sparked once and died completely, plunging me into the gray halo of my flashlight beam. I approached the back corner where I'd uncovered the bricks. They were already cleared away. The hatch sat exposed. Waiting. My breath caught when I saw it again. The word Caleb was still etched in the iron, but something new had been scratched beneath it since last time. 3 words. Freshly gouged. I took root. I unlocked it. The key turned with a sound like bone splitting. The hatch released with a soft exhale, not air escaping. More like something inhaling. Beneath it, stairs. Old metal rungs bolted into a concrete shaft, slick with moisture and covered in green slime. The darkness below pulsed faintly, like it knew I was coming. I descended. 30 rungs down, the air changed. It got thicker. Wet with condensation. And warm, oppressively warm. Like a greenhouse left to rot. My clothes stuck to my skin. My flashlight beam illuminated something I wish it hadn't, fingerprints. Smeared into the condensation on the walls. Dozens of them. All small. Child-sized. Pressed flat into the slime. Dragged downward. As I reached the bottom, the final rung bent under my foot, and I dropped the last few feet, landing in shallow water with a splash that echoed too far. The chamber at the base of the shaft was vast. A low-ceiling tunnel, cylindrical, lined in the same brick as the foundation I found before. The walls curved like the inside of a throat. Something had carved symbols into the stone. Hundreds of them. Crude spirals, jagged loops, geometric shapes arranged in ways that made my head throb to look at. Every so often, among the markings, a word would appear, scratched in English, sometimes upside down, sometimes backwards: dreamed, taken, rooted, Murrow. And always, always, he. Just he, no name. The tunnel forked after 50 feet. Left or right. Both corridors were identical, slick, shadow-choked, and pulsing with that awful moist heat. I hesitated. And then the whisper came. Soft. Familiar. Right in my ear: come right. Come home. It was my voice. So I went left. The left tunnel sloped downward, deeper and deeper, until the air felt like thick mucus in my lungs. I saw roots growing along the ceiling. Wet, pale tendrils that pulsed faintly with internal veins of red light. And then the tunnel opened into a chamber. I don't have words for it. The floor was submerged, ankle deep, in brackish, warm water. The walls were covered in faces, not sculpted or painted. Grown. Faces of people trapped in the stone, eyes closed, mouths agape in frozen screams. Some of them twitched when I approached. I counted 17. And the last face, the one nearest to the altar in the center, was Caleb Murrow's. His eyes snapped open the moment I looked at him. He wept black blood. I turned to the altar. It wasn't made of stone. It was a tree stump, dead, petrified, but glistening with sap the color of congealed fat. The roots wrapped around the walls like veins, embedding into the faces, the floor, the ceiling. And on top of the stump, a journal. Old. Leather-bound. Pages swollen with moisture. I flipped it open, hands trembling. It was Caleb's. The first entries are normal. Boring, even. Generators running hot again. Have to get Johnson to send another fan blade. Weather's worse than last rotation. Haven't seen a clear sky in a week. Food rations low. Requesting supplies via main channel. Then, later, the hatch. I hear it at night. Something tapping from the other side. Dreams getting worse. Woke up with water in my lungs. Doctor won't respond on comms. Tried to bury it. Can't. It won't stop whispering. It said it needed soil. I gave it myself. The final entry: he's not beneath the island. He is the island. We were built on his back. He's awake now. I opened my mouth and roots grew from my throat. He will take the sky last. Something moved behind me. I turned. A figure stood in the tunnel entrance. Not Caleb. Not exactly. It wore his shape. His uniform. But its face was warped, stretched by bark and rot. Its eyes glowed faintly green, sap leaking from the corners. Its mouth hung open, and I could see roots coiling out from between its teeth. It didn't speak. It just stepped toward me. I raised the crowbar, shaking. Stay back. It didn't stop. It walked slowly through the water, each step sending out ripples that made the faces on the walls whimper. I backed into the altar, heart hammering. The thing raised its hand, and from its palm, a flower bloomed. A perfect white blossom, slick with blood and rain. It offered it to me. Like a gift. Like an invitation. That's when the flare gun went off. I don't remember pulling the trigger. The blossom burst into flame, and the creature shrieked, not in pain, but in something like joy, a long, hollow wail that shook the water and walls. I ran. I don't remember how I made it back to the hatch. I don't remember climbing the ladder. Only that when I slammed the hatch shut behind me, I heard the whisper again, "You brought me to the surface." I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor of the control room with the crowbar clenched in both hands, blood dried under my fingernails. Every few minutes I looked out the rain-smeared window, scanning the tree line. There were shapes out there. They didn't move. They just stood, watching. Around 4:12 a.m., the cameras cut out. No warning. Just white static across all 8 monitors, humming like radio snow. The backup screen blinked to life for a second, just 1 second. And I saw something I can't explain. The hallway by the food storage was boiling. Not with heat, movement. Hundreds, thousands, of tiny things crawling all over the floor, walls, ceiling. They looked like fingers. Just fingers. Writhing in piles. And among them, a leg, pale and twitching. It disappeared when the feed went dark again. The static began to whisper. Not in words, not at first. It was like a wet mouth pressed right up to my ear. SLCHH, 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 just breathing, mucus thick. Then it coalesced. They'll open your body like a gift. They'll plant you inside out. I slammed the crowbar through the backup monitor. It sparked once. Died. The hallway light outside the control room started flickering. Staccato, like a strobe light, click 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 click. That's when the alarm started. 3 distinct zones, north stairwell main generator barrack storage. I silenced the klaxon. It didn't matter. Nothing could have prepared me for what I found. North stairwell. The smell hit me first, burned hair and bile. The concrete wall was soaked in red. Not blood. Something thicker. Jelly-like. The consistency of crushed organ meat. The lights here stayed solid. That somehow made it worse. There was a body on the steps. I recognized the uniform. One of the maintenance crew I never met, probably weeks dead. But the way it lay there, no skin. None. Peeled clean off. Not a drop of blood left. The eyes were still wet. Still blinking. I stared too long. That was my mistake. It sat up. Just sat up, like a marionette on invisible strings. And it screamed. A sound like boiling water and torn metal. No throat left, no lips. Just raw chords vibrating with unnatural force. The sound shattered the stairwell light, plunging everything into darkness. I ran. It followed. I don't remember getting back to the main floor. I just remember slamming the control room door behind me, collapsing against it, hyperventilating. Something slammed into the other side once. Twice. Then nothing. Later. I checked the generator shed feed. It was back online. I saw something crawling across the ceiling. Fast. All knees and elbows. No face. Its skin was greenish white, stretched taut over bone. Its mouth hung open as it scuttled, and I swear I saw tiny teeth lining its throat like lamprey spirals. When it reached the far wall, it slipped into it. Not through a door. Into the wall itself. Like the structure had pores now. Like the island had absorbed it. 3:17 a.m. Storage room motion sensor tripped. I went. I know. I shouldn't have. But something was scraping. Loud. Metallic. I opened the door. Inside, the shelves were overturned. Supplies gutted. Salt bags torn open and spilled across the floor like white entrails. The back wall had deep gouges in it. As if something with claws, or tools, had carved its way through. And on the back panel, a human jaw. Nailed to the wall. Still twitching. It belonged to a face that wasn't there. I turned to leave. Then the light cut out. Total darkness. I clicked my flashlight. Nothing. I pulled the flare gun, my last one. Before I could fire, a hand grabbed my ankle. Cold. Wet. Too many fingers. I kicked. Hard. I heard a crack and a hiss of something retreating. The flare gun fired mid-panic. The blast of red light revealed the thing, crouched by the door. Its body was inside out. Muscle on the outside, organs pulsing down its back like exposed machinery. Its eyes were human. Brown. Scared. It lunged. The flare caught it in the chest. It howled like a dog being skinned and collapsed, convulsing. I ran. Didn't stop until I hit the shoreline. The beach has changed. The sand is no longer sand. It's teeth. Not rocks. Not shells. Teeth. Human. Animal. Some too large to be either. Tens of thousands of them, scattered across the shore like broken porcelain. And the ocean? It's gone black. Thick. Sluggish. Like ink mixed with blood. Something moved just beneath the surface. A bulge, like a whale or corpse, drifting just below sight. It brushed against the shoreline, and the sand teeth chattered. I left before I could see more. 5:01 a.m. Back in the control room. Locked the door. Secured every bolt. Blocked the air vents. And now I'm watching the monitor again. Zone 4 is online, the hallway to the kitchen. A new figure just appeared. Tall. Pale. Wearing my face. It walks like it's drunk. Lurching. Limping. Its mouth is wide open, and every few steps, something crawls out of it. Rats with human eyes. Teeth with tiny legs. One of them looked at the camera and smiled. It saw me. They all did. I think this island was grown around something ancient. Something that was buried alive. And now it's waking up. And it's hungry. 6:03 a.m. I didn't hear it at first. There was a kind of pressure. That subtle shift in the air you feel before a storm or a nosebleed. Something in the barometric weight told me the island was preparing itself. Then came the smell. Salt. But not the clean tang of ocean wind. No, this was coppery, decayed, organic. Salt curdled with blood and meat. The hallway outside the control room looked different on the monitors. Longer. It shouldn't be. I know the exact number of tiles between this room and the southern junction, 32. But now, 67. And growing. 6:10 a.m. I left the control room armed with the crowbar, a meat hook from the emergency box, and a roll of duct tape around my forearm like armor. Every footstep echoed too loudly. Like I wasn't walking on the ground, but inside something's mouth. The lights flickered. Every few seconds, they'd flash bright and expose the walls for what they were becoming, veined. Pulsing. The drywall now throbbed like muscle. Black veins crisscrossed its surface, and beneath the paint, something shifted, like worms packed under plastic. I reached the pantry hallway and stopped. The door was gone. In its place, a narrow organic corridor, stretched and fleshy, with walls that breathed. Literally. I watched them inhale and exhale, inflating wetly with every breath. A single word was carved into the fleshy archway in letters made of embedded teeth, salt. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost clung to the edges of the new passage, coating the floor in a thin, crackling layer. The walls weren't just breathing now, they were whispering. Low, whispery gasps, like things pressed just beyond the flesh membrane, begging to be let out. The corridor bent sharply left, then right, then down. The angles made no physical sense. I should have already been outside the main building. But the deeper I went, the less I trusted that I was even inside anything built by human hands. Then came the sound. A scrape. Wet. Erratic. Like something dragging itself across broken glass and licking it clean. I turned the corner and found the first salt room. It was massive. Ceiling arched like a cathedral, but slick with salt stalactites, each one shaped like a finger, complete with nails. They dripped saline fluid onto a floor carpeted with salt mounds. The mounds moved. Each one pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm, and under the layer of salt I saw shapes. Bodies. Buried in fetal positions. Some still twitching. Their mouths open, packed tight with crystalline salt like they'd been force-fed it until they choked. One mound split open as I passed. A tongue shot out, crusted, gray, and long enough to slap the floor in front of me. It flailed, reaching blindly. Then the whole mound convulsed. The body inside began to crawl out. I could hear its bones snapping. Salt falling from its eyes like dandruff. It clawed at the ground, dragging its salt-rotted body behind it like a busted centipede. Its jaw dislocated and it screamed, except no sound came out. Only salt powder, spraying in a jet like dry vomit. I ran. The corridor changed behind me. It closed up, walls shifting like muscle contractions. When I looked back, the room was gone, replaced by a flat slab of salt-covered stone. The island was sealing its own wounds. 6:44 a.m. I found a chamber with a massive rusted pipe running from floor to ceiling, oozing a black-red sludge. The walls were covered in peg hooks, like a butcher's wall. Hanging from them, torsos. Not human. Each was segmented, like insect abdomens. Pale, dripping. Empty of organs, but some were still twitching. They'd been opened deliberately. At the center of the room stood a metal table. A salt block, 6 feet long, engraved with channels for drainage. Something was laid out on it. It took me a full minute to realize it was me. My clothes. My hair. My body. Laid open. Hollowed. Ribs pulled apart. But my face, the face wasn't mine. It looked at me and smiled. I smashed the thing's skull in with the crowbar until it caved like a crushed melon. Salt poured out of the wound. Then the room screamed. Not the corpse. The walls. The ceiling split, and a slurry of salt and bile rained down. I slipped, hit the floor hard. That's when the hooks came down. Like spiders descending from veins, tipped in metal and bone. They swung at me, randomly, mindlessly, carving the air and floor. One grazed my shoulder. Searing pain. I rolled into the hallway and crawled out, barely avoiding the last strike. 7:12 a.m. Back in the main hallway. But now the lights are red. Not emergency red, blood red. Like someone dyed the bulbs with flesh. I ran for the barracks, hoping to find clean clothes, gauze, something to patch the wound. But when I opened the barracks door, I saw a garden. An impossible place. The bunks were gone. The lockers. All gone. Instead, roots had split the floorboards. Massive vines slithered over the ceiling. Trees, not real ones, flesh trees, had burst through the walls, sprouting leaves made of human ears. And the flowers. They were blooming. All around me. Blossoms made of skin. Petals made of eyelids. Buds that opened with a moan, revealing tiny teeth instead of pollen. In the center of the garden stood Caleb Murrow. His face now fully a knot of bark and muscle. Roots twisted through his body like exposed veins. He didn't speak. He only vomited. A stream of salt. And from it crawled something that used to be a man, but now had too many knees, and a face on its stomach that laughed as it ran at me on all fours. I slammed the door. I barricaded it. I left blood smears from my shoulder all the way back to the control room. 7:55 a.m. I don't know what this place is. Not anymore. I don't think I'm on an island. I think the island was just a crust. Like a scab over a deeper wound. And now that wound is open. And it's reaching up. For me. I'm watching the cameras now. All of them are active again. And every feed shows the same thing, the control room. My control room. Except I'm not in it. He is. The man with my face. Sitting at the console. Smiling. One hand on the mic. The other holding something. A strip of flayed skin, wriggling like a worm. He looks up at the camera. Waves. And I swear I hear it. Through the speakers in the room, open your belly, friend. It's time to plant what he gave you. 8:04 a.m. The walls are bleeding. It started as a slow seep, dark red fluid oozing from the corners of the control room. I thought maybe it was leaking from a burst pipe or corpse in the ductwork. But now it's pulsing with every beat of my heart. The floor's warm. Not from the sun. There is no sun now. Just a dull red haze outside the windows, like the world's trapped inside a stomach. Every wall vibrates slightly. Like it's breathing. Like the whole building is drawing me deeper. 8:11 a.m. I heard a voice. Coming from the ventilation grate. A child's voice, soft and sickly sweet. Come on. Crawl in. You'll be safe in the warm. I almost opened it. Almost. But then something pushed against the grate from the inside. A face. Bloated and white, with its lips sewn shut. It pressed against the metal like a balloon full of fluid. Bursting with movement just under the skin. I saw teeth swimming inside it like minnows. The lips split. Thread tore. It whispered, he's inside the walls now. Then it pulled back, disappearing into the ducts. I unscrewed the grate. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. 8:16 a.m. The vent is tighter than I expected. I barely fit. My wounded shoulder scraped the sides. The metal's warm, not like heated pipes, but like living flesh, radiating fever heat. I crawled 20 feet forward before I heard something behind me. A click. Then another. Then scraping. I turned and saw it, a pair of long, insect-like arms folding themselves into the vent behind me. Each arm had hooks where fingers should be. Bone hooks, clicking against the metal like knitting needles. They moved fast. Too fast. I screamed and crawled harder. 8:19 a.m. The vent dipped sharply down. I had no choice. I slid, metal squealing against my skin. At the bottom, I dropped 6 feet and landed in a soft mass. It breathed. It moved. The floor was made of bodies, fused together, eyes sealed shut, mouths open in one long, collective gasp. I stood on their backs. They moaned under me. One tried to reach up, its fingers webbed together with melted skin. The room shook. Then the walls peeled open. From every corner. Roots, thick and twitching, emerged and slammed into the pile of bodies. Like feeding tubes. They drove themselves into backs, necks, stomachs, and began to pump something in. The bodies twitched harder. Then they began to swell. Like they were being filled. Like balloons ready to burst. I climbed the nearest pipe and yanked myself up into a service duct, gagging from the stench. Vomit clung to my lip. The salt in the air burned my eyes. Something began to scream below me. Wet pops. Explosions of flesh. Then silence. 8:27 a.m. The upper ventilation shaft dropped me into a new corridor, one I hadn't seen before on any map. The floors were no longer metal. They were made of teeth. A mosaic of molars and incisors and canines, all jammed together in a solid, crunching floor. They clicked under my weight, chattering like wind-up toys. The walls here were alive, too, nippled, like tongue tissue. Every few steps, they exhaled. I passed a mirror. Except it wasn't a mirror. It was skin, stretched across a frame, with something mimicking me from the other side. It moved just a fraction too late. A delay. Like a bad signal. It smiled. I didn't. 8:35 a.m. I found what used to be the medical bay. Now it's a nursery. Rows of incubators, lit in flickering red. But the things inside aren't babies. They're larvae. Human-faced. Transparent-skinned. Their tiny mouths open and shut in a soundless, synchronized moan. Some are eating their own fingers. One looked directly at me. It whispered, "We're growing teeth for him." Then it began to vibrate, fast, like a tuning fork, and split down the middle. From its body spilled dozens of finger-sized centipedes, each with a human eye at the head. They scuttled toward me. I ran. 8:42 a.m. The hallway bent upward. Gravity's gone wrong here. I climbed a wall, or the floor became vertical. I don't know anymore. Everything smells like dirt and meat. Something about the air tastes feral. I crawled through a tear in the ceiling tiles and emerged in what used to be the observation tower. It's gone now. It's just a giant shaft, stretching infinitely up into the sky, framed by ribs the size of telephone poles. Organic, ossified, like I'm standing in the spinal column of some ancient god. There's a ladder. Rusted. Growing moss and skin. I climb. 8:56 a.m. 50 feet up, something begins to sing. A chorus. Thousands of voices. Not in harmony, in anguish. A scraping dirge of pain. From the walls. From below. From inside my own head. My nose starts to bleed. I climb faster. 9:03 a.m. At the top of the ladder, a throat. That's all I can call it. It's a vertical tunnel lined with teeth, not bone, but metal teeth. Like a trash compactor. The air pulses with suction. Behind me, the shaft is closing. Bones crack. Flesh folds inward. I can't go back. So I leap. Into the throat. It swallows me whole. 9:10 a.m. I wake up in darkness. The floor is soft. It breathes beneath me. There's light now, dim and red. The walls are covered in faces. All screaming. All alive. Frozen in agony. A voice comes from the ceiling. The island has chosen your womb, child. The seed is ready. We just need your belly. I scream. Something begins to crawl down the wall. It's not a spirit. It's a thing. Made of vines, bone, and stolen skin. It walks like a marionette strung with intestines. At the center of its chest is a mouth. Not where a mouth should be, just embedded there, sideways, licking constantly. It reaches for me. I grab a shard of broken rib from the floor, some poor soul's discarded part, and jam it into its eye. It doesn't bleed. It shrieks. A scream like rusty hinges. It lashes out. Its fingers pierce my leg. Pain explodes up my thigh. I swing the rib again, shatter part of its jaw. Then I run. Limping. Crying. Bleeding. I don't stop. 9:22 a.m. I find a door. It's not real. I know that. It's made of skin, stretched over a wooden frame. But it opens. And behind it, I'm back in the control room. Pristine. Untouched. All 8 monitors show static. The windows look out on blue sky. The air smells like disinfectant. I touch my face. No blood. My leg, healed. There's even coffee brewing. And a chair waiting. I sit. I stare at the screen. And the monitors blink to life. They show me. Not me now. Me before. On loop. Walking into the control room. Drinking coffee. Reading the manual. Then the cameras flicker and show me now, watching myself. Then they show what's behind me. He's back. The man with my face. Except now his face is gone. Just a blank. And from the empty hole in his head, a single root unfurls. It crawls toward my mouth. And whispers, "Open."